There are benefits to protesting. Government stands to profit from people not being considered independent contractors. It's a slap in the face for someone who's been maximizing their income. Make as much money as you can now, because we don't know how this will truly affect us. At the end of the day, keep in mind that it's an election cycle. I'm a little afraid of the next story. The next story is Biden administration to unveil contractor rule that could upend gig economy, because if it could go well and it could go bad. If they take away the standard mileage deduction, I strongly believe being a rideshare driver will no longer be worth it unless it comes with something else that will change the pay gap. And I think that they are doing this or want to do this in order to get more taxes. If there's no standard mile deduction, then the government can make more money off of taxes. And with gig work exploding the way it has, I can see that perspective. But this is all conjecture. We don't know what will happen. And we're going to read the story, and then I'm going to tell you what I think we should be doing in the face of this legislation. We're going to also view different viewpoints. The administration of US President Joe Biden will release a final rule as soon as this week that will make it more difficult for companies to treat workers as independent contractors rather than employees that typically cost a company more, in administration officials say. The US Department of Labor rule, which was first proposed in 2022 and is likely to face legal challenges, will require that workers be considered employees entitled to more benefits and legal protections than contractors when they are economically independent on a company. A range of industries will likely be affected by the rule, which will take effect later this year, but its potential impact on app-based service that rely heavily on contract workers has garnered the most attention. Shares of Uber Technologies, Lyft, and DoorDash all tumbled at least 10% when the draft of the rule was proposed in 2022. Is this old? No, okay, they're talking a lot. The rule will likely decrease flexibility for workers, resulting in lost opportunities to earn money, according to Mark Friedman, vice president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the largest U.S. business lobby. Maybe. We don't really know. It is likely to threaten the flexibility of individuals to work when and how they want, and could have significant impacts on our economy. For example, if they put in their overtime pay would be fantastic. I'd make a lot of money. But chances are they wouldn't want to pay that overtime pay, and they would cap you at how many hours you can drive. Put you at 40 hours. That's something we did in corporate world as a result. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that if that happens, what looks good on paper doesn't always work well in actuality. So be very observant when it comes to this whole thing. And I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. We would have to have more information, and we don't have that information. In a draft version of the rule in 2022, the Labor Department said it would consider factors such as workers' opportunity for profit or loss in investment permanency, the degree of control by the employer over the worker, and whether the work is integral part of employer's business. The rule replaces a Trump administration regulation that said workers who own their own business or have the ability to work for competing companies, such as drivers who work for Uber and Lyft, can be treated as contractors. And keep in mind, right? California had a law that said for a period of time, drivers are now employees. And then I believe Trump made changes, and then it got challenged in the Supreme Court, and then they converted it back to independent contractors. So, that might be the angle they're trying to play. The department's sharp break from the Trump era regulation will likely be the focus of lawsuits challenging the new rule. Legal experts have said federal law requires agencies to adequately explain their decision to withdraw and replace existing rules. I do want to say this before we even go any further. It might sound like the government is fighting for rideshare drivers. It's an election year. This is something they could have done 4 years ago if they believed it. There's nothing that could have stopped them from overturning it. I think this is just a gardener support. They're trying to, even if they did the same thing with student loans. They knew they couldn't actually forgive student loans. They took it to court, and it failed, and they knew that. And they used that as a way to draw land in the sand, to draw a line in the sand to show voters who supports it and who doesn't support it. I think that's what they're doing here again with rideshare. I don't think that this is noble. There might be things that come out of this that benefit us, and there might be things that harm us. There's no real way to tell. But at the end of the day, keep in mind that it's an election cycle. The Biden administration has said that Trump-era rule violated U.S. wage laws and was out of step with decades of federal court decisions, and worker advocates have said a more strict standard was necessary to combat the rapid misclassification of workers in some industries. Government stands to profit from people not being considered independent contractors. That needs to be known and aware. That doesn't mean they're doing it for that reason. It also doesn't mean they're not doing it for that reason. The Left-Leaning Economic Policy Institute in a report last year estimated that a truck driver treated as a contractor earns up to $18,000 less per year than one who is deemed an employee, while construction workers' earnings drop by nearly $17,000 and home health aides lose up on almost $9,500 in pay and benefits. Now, all right, so those are general stats. One, we just walked through how it can look like independent contractors making less money because of the tax write-offs that are involved. So that's one. Two, again, I have higher standards for my subscribers. I expect you guys, if you're a truck driver, I expect you to have like the lowest expense ratio out of all the truck drivers out there, just because you're making smarter decisions and you're maximizing your income. That is my expectation of you guys. So comparing ourselves to average, the less average you are, right? The more on the high end spectrum you are, is the more a classification as an employee might hurt you. Like there might be, like I showed you, there are drivers in my city somehow making $17 an hour with Lyft. If there's a change that now pays an hourly rate of $20, that's a benefit for them. But it's a slap in the face for someone who's been maximizing their income. So yeah, sure, it might be a little unfair, but we are putting in more effort. We are learning. We are trying to do things, and this is something to be aware of. This is how it works. Business groups sharply criticized the draft rule after it was proposed. Any change in policy is expected to increase labor costs for many sectors, including trucking, retail, and manufacturing. That's usually what happens. Now, I'm not going to go too much deeper into this because there are some. I don't want to go too deep into this. We don't really know what they're thinking, what they're doing, but right in the face of this, to you, I would say, make as much money as you can now, because we don't know how this will truly affect us, right? Uber put out a statement saying, this rule doesn't change anything, but that's all just PR stuff. Right? They say the rule does not contain an A/B test for worker classification. There will be a 60-day window before this rule is into effect, so it won't even go into effect until March. Between now and March, make as much money as you can just to prepare in case the government does something stupid that really does jack up your paycheck. And it might not be the government. Uber and Lyft might react poorly to this new rule if the government does something, and they might decrease our pay as a result, and like say, hey, now the drivers are making less because of this rule change. Can we go back? Like anything can happen. Anything can happen, and we need to protect ourselves. So I think like you should be going hard between now and whenever this rule changes. Go hard. When the rule changes, you observe the landscape and determine if you need to slow down or continue going hard. Department of Labor officials have repeatedly stressed that the rule is intended to address misclassification of workers in traditional industries and is unlikely to result in any large-scale classification changes. All right. Everyone has their side to play. Uber has their side to play. I'm going to read this. As for Uber, we will continue pushing in states around the country for models that provide drivers with flexibility and benefits. Like our CEO outlined in the New York Times open-ended piece and what is in our working together priorities. For example, Prop 22 in California, voters overwhelmingly approved Prop 22 in 2020 with 59% of the vote, ensuring that drivers keep their independent status while gaining access to new benefits and protections, including a minimum earning standard, a healthcare stipend for more active workers, and occupational accident insurance. If that can become more widespread, I think that would be a benefit for drivers. They still can write off their mileage write-offs. This is in New York as well. And I'd be for this. I'd support that. As long as we can keep our mileage write-off and work as much as we want, whatever else they want to do, I think it's a benefit. In Washington state, Uber worked together with Lyft, a local union, and Democrats in the state legislature to pass a bill providing a minimum wage, paid family and medical leave, and other benefits to ride-hail drivers while ensuring drivers kept their independent status and the flexibility that comes with it. I support that. New York State, in November, Uber and New York's Attorney General reached a landmark agreement to ensure drivers retain their independent status and flexibility while also having access to new benefits and protections like a minimum earning standard, paid sick leave, and more. That's why I said New York. I think New York's one of the best markets for it. And, protesting can get you here. Being loud, talking to your government officials. There are benefits to protesting. Just if you can't afford to protest, I need you to be driving.